on each other's work as well. So you know the drill by now. Somebody just volunteers to go first. So I'm interested in what you've been doing the last few weeks. I'm particularly interested in whether you've been working on any of these tools that we started to learn, what your thoughts are about your business idea, anything you'd like to share with us. And remember, as I waved at you last time, this is not about meeting my expectations. You're the ones responsible for your learning. So if you've done nothing, that's perfectly okay. I'm not going to make any judgment at all. So who would like to go first?
I will.
Tammy.
So I think everyone probably remembers Mel and I were considering working on a project together, but we had a couple of ideas that we weren't sure about, and we've decided to split, and Mel's going to do her own project now, which I'm sure she'll tell you about.
Cool.
But for the project that I'm doing was more about the wish list kind of thing for clients. And last week I was actually fortunate enough to, I guess, have a trial run of how that might work. For those that don't know, Feeder and Robin's mum is actually quite unwell and perhaps in the early stages of palliative care. And so we put together, I spoke with the family and we put together a little something to sort of create a special day for her. And it was absolutely amazing. I think when I thought of this program, it was more about the clients and the benefit it would have to the clients and even the client's family. I certainly, though, didn't anticipate the impact it would have on me, and not just me, the other staff that were involved. So super, super excited to give this a real crack.
I love that. I love that. Thank you so much. Can you point to somebody else, Tammy? Hello, Amanda.
Chris Price is the next person I can see on my screen.
There she is.
Chris, you're mute.
You've got to turn your mic on, Chris.
Okay, sorry. Yeah, it's been a busy 3 weeks. Loving the challenges, loving the challenge. The day after this, my son arrived, so I spent time with him. Then we had the fires, had no internet for a week, and so I've been trying to do it at work on and off, but finding the tools really good and quite easy so far. So yeah, no, I'm enjoying it.
Where do you live, Chris?
Bridget Springs.
Oh, right in the middle of it.
Yeah, it was a little bit too close for comfort the very first night, but after that they seemed to have it under control. But the internet, yeah, we were lost without that for almost a week. Yeah, so it was a pain in the neck, really. But yeah, those firefighters and those helicopters did an amazing job. We're very, very lucky to have them. So, but yeah, so.
Thank you.
Steph, you're the next one I can see.
Thanks. Yeah, I've done a little bit of it. I was just I don't know if I was thinking too much into it because mine's a beauty thing and obviously it's just men and women. So I don't know if it just seems too easy. I'm confused about it. But yeah, I've done a little bit. I've just been busy with my TAFE stuff as well, so.
Okay. Thanks, Steph. Throw to somebody else.
Jay?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay, good, because I don't have my mouse and for some reason my thing's not working. So I really haven't done anything. I've done a lot of thinking, but yeah, I'm still not clear on my ideas, so I really need to do it, and I'll probably do it this weekend. But I'm still sort of going with some sort of learning, teaching thing, but I just keep seeing a wider, how it can sort of a wider opportunity, so how it can sort of suit so it can sort of help so many people. So I really need to do the tool to see which one is probably the most valuable value.
Thank you, Jay. Go to somebody.
Paul, have you been? Sorry.
I haven't. No, that's good. Yeah, look, after the last webinar, I left probably all over the place. And I sent a quick communication before Michael went overseas, and he gave me some good feedback in terms of trying to give me some sort of direction. I've decided to move away from my original proposal around working with around the disability area, and trying to get into the school sector. And I guess after I had some discussions with some colleagues of mine, or former colleagues of mine, I started to realise what a big job it would be to even trying to work with a large department, and trying to get things happening, despite my wanting to narrow it down and just focus with one school initially. So I really had some other thoughts after the last webinar around working in the Indigenous space, the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander space, to really look at possibly enhancing the number of clients that we might have, or increasing the number of clients that we have in that space. I had some initial emails to Shelley Rooney, in charge of the drivers there, and Shelley was excited by that idea, saying that there's currently already a partnership, a sort of a partnership with North Coast Corporation for community health, and they do broker some driving there, but that particular corporation is struggling to communicate or how to get out to the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander community locally. So I had a thought about, and Shelley has offered to give me the numbers of registered Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander currently accessing the service here on the coast for the last 12 months, that are registered, and those that have used the service over the last 12 months. I started gathering some data, and I thought I've used the tools quite extensively, actually, working through a whole range of things, and I've also got a couple of contacts within the North Coast Corporation for community health. I haven't made any contacts with them there at this stage. I really wanted to suss this out with Michael a bit more before I made that next step. But mine is centred around developing a a communication strategy to really build on what's already there, I suppose, or what has been started with Comlink, but to really try and build on that and enhance that. So that's my thinking at this stage.
Good on you. Thank you, Paul. Show to somebody?
Mel.
Okay, guys. Can you guys hear me okay? Because I'm doing this from my phone tonight.
Yep. Good.
Yeah.
You can hear me? Okay,
yep.
Cool. So as Tam said, we decided to go in separately with our ideas, because we thought they're two really great ideas and we don't want to pass up the opportunity not to bring one forward. So I've decided to look at an intergenerational respite centre for the Vitality Village.
Wow.
So I want to bring in prior school age children, around 4 years old, to be able to partake in in the ADLs of elderly clients at the Respite Centre. So it's we've done some research. There's actually a little bit of a series on the ABC at the moment where they trialled it, and the mental, physical and emotional benefits on both the children and the adults, being, you know, two completely generations that they're both learning so much from each other. And I would love to bring that to life. There's not one in Queensland, there's one in Adelaide. Some of the information I've researched, they've sort of trialled it in Adelaide, but to my knowledge, you know, Australia-wide, I don't think there's an actual intergenerational centre up and running. So I would love for us as an organisation and for me to be part of it, to bring that to life and see that. So Tam and I have discussed that, and like Tam said about the Wish Foundation type the idea that we had. I was part of that last Tuesday, and it was absolutely incredible. The emotion was so real to
you've just frozen, Mel. And the emotion was so real was the last I heard.
What we were able to do for
whoa, it's starting to really. Are other people hearing this or
Yeah,
not?
it's all breaking up. Yeah.
I'll send her a text message and just let her know.
Okay. Mel, but if you're hearing me, we need to interrupt you because you're just coming through as a series of sort of vibrations, of vibes. So we might come back to you once you've either moved into a better reception.
And have I lost you?
I was just going to say, I think that was the show that I was watching, Michael, that I was talking to you about today.
All right. Yep.
It was about intergeneration, and they had the kids with disabilities and the young kids dancing.
Oh yeah.
And they had old people and young kids doing artwork and stuff together, and I thought it was really good.
Cool.
So I think that's a really good idea, Mel.
Awesome.
Mel, yeah, we're hearing you again. We lost you at the last couple minutes.
Okay. I'm sorry, I was probably babbling on too much, so that was a sign to shut up.
Oh, you think the gods of the internet were shutting you up? Okay. Anything else to share, Mel? Before?
No, I'd covered it all.
Okay, you've got Emma and Amanda to choose from.
Emma.
Hey everyone. Like Michael, I've been on holiday, so I've just come back in from camping for 2 and a bit weeks tonight. So I'm kind of playing catch up with everything. The only thing I was going to say, Paul, did you know Boongaran's on this week?
No.
Okay. So that's Noosa. It's up at Noosaville. It's an Indigenous cultural festival. I think it's on Wednesday the 24th at Lions Park.
Okay, thank you.
But you might just be able to wander around and put some faces to some of the names you've been given without having to tell them about your idea yet, but just to do community contact there.
What a great idea. Thank you very much.
And looks like, is that it, Emma?
Yeah, I don't know. It's great to hear how everybody's going and how everything's advancing. So yeah, great.
Cool. So that leaves you, Amanda.
Hello, everybody. Yeah, really lovely to hear what everybody's saying, and that watching the ideas come to fruition. It's one of the magic things about a course like this is just that, you know, this week 3-week gestation period. Just let things start to bubble up and fall away as well. yeah, for me, it's gone too quick. I can't believe that we're here again. I've had a really busy time, and yeah, it's flying. We're in October next week. I feel slightly unnerved by that fact, but anyway, I probably need a 3-week holiday traveling around New Zealand. Anyway, yeah, I look forward to this evening. Thanks, Michael.
Thank you, and thank you all. That's you know, I 10 minutes ago I was really quite weary, and now I'm not. I'm just not. You're better than methamphetamine, you mom. Just a couple of quick bits of feedback. Tammy, just love your intention and your practice. You've got a heart the size of a house, and Mel too. I think, and your insight into the benefit of giving, I think, is a really powerful one, and one you should really develop with this business idea. That, I mean, I think generosity and gratitude are two sides of the same coin. You know, generous action enables you to feel gratitude in a way that you can't otherwise, and the good you create in the world is actually then rubbed off on you. And I think there's potential there, business-wise, for professional development, staff development, as well as, you know, good works in the community and etc. So I'd really develop that if I was you. Steph, when we come to market segmentation, yeah, men and women, you can divide your markets by gender, but you can also divide your markets in other ways. So it can be different regions. You know, Comlink's in 7 different regions, so that can be 7 different markets. Or you can divide it by capacity to pay. So some people it can be free, other people it can be fee for service, full fee for service at the rate that, you know, people would pay at a reasonable hairdresser, and then there can be points in between. So it can be scaled by income, it can be scaled by postcode, it can be scaled by ethnicity. You know, we've just been talking about Indigenous requirements when it comes to transport issues. So think beyond just gender, and make use of what I'm going to rave about a bit tonight, which is the gas groups, which I'm going to encourage you start, where you actually start bouncing these ideas off each other. And Jay, I think that, oh, I don't know if Jay's still there. Jay, can you hear me? Hello? I'll come back to Jay in a second. Paul and Mel, it's really encouraging for me to hear about you doing the homework, doing the background, doing the research. In both cases, I think it's bearing clear and obvious fruit. Both of you are tackling big projects, particularly Paul. There's no substitute for engagement. Good. Engagement with other edgies. I'll come back to this gas groups. Again, Emma has Indigenous cultural background. She jumped in straight away with a suggestion for you, Paul. You know Emma now. She knows you. Use that connection. She will know people that you need to speak to. She not only told you about an event, she actually advised you on appropriate protocol about getting to know people, and etc. Use that. Jay, I was just saying that when you feel stuck or when you feel sort of lost or whatever, it can be really useful to engage with others who are going through this journey. So gas groups that I'm going to talk about in a minute can be group action sessions, but they can also be group accountability sessions. So I find in my coaching practice sometimes that if I find myself working with somebody who likes and respects me, and they tell me that they're going to deliver such and such by such and such a date, and they see me writing that down. Sorry, Jay, are you okay?
Yeah.
Yeah. I can see you doing other stuff. If they like and respect me, they see me writing stuff down that they tell me, and they know that I'm going to be asking them about that in a fortnight. It motivates, you know. So I reckon set yourself some dates. You're in Batinia. Most of the people on this screen are also there. Work out a coffee date next Wednesday week or something, whatever it is, and just commit to that. And you'll get the benefit of what I was just raving about with Paul and Emma as well. You know, they will have ideas that will help you clarify yours, and vice versa. And that's sort of the point about the gas groups. Paul, don't worry about changing your value proposition in midstream, and that's advice for everybody. That happens quite often. A recent delivery was a woman who was married to a strawberry grower down at Wamuran, and she was trained as a naturopath. She was just interested in helping him develop business beyond the farm gate, because strawberries are a really touchy crop. They don't have much of a shelf life, etc. They're hard to sell. She ended up starting, by the end of it, she changed her value proposition 4 times and ended up doing something that's now flourishing, which is freeze-dried strawberry, taking excess strawberries that are normally dumped, freeze-drying them, grinding them into a powder and marketing the powder. And that then has turned into a whole recycle waste fruit business that she's gathered a whole bunch of people around. So she had no idea when she started that that's what she was going to end up doing. The tools are designed to be really modular and flexible. So now that you know how to use them, like I say, you can use those first 3 that we've learned to use already in 10 minutes. It takes you 10 minutes just to sketch, So don't freak out about, the same advice for you, Jay. Don't freak out about the fact that you're not sort of really concrete about it yet. That will emerge. Love the intergenerational respite centre, Mel. It's kind of, as Jay said, we were talking about that doco today. I think has enormous potential for Comlink. Particularly since one of the selling points, and I've been partnering with Feeder in a lot of presentations and pitches around this, around tenancies and marketing the Vitality Village. One of the things we're selling is the capacity for researchers and people in allied fields to access community. These university types set up research projects and they have no idea of how to actually tap the communities they want to study. And we're positioning ourselves by saying, look, we've got this garden happening, we've got this soup kitchen happening, we've got an intergenerational respite centre happening, whatever it is, these are all marketplaces for you to gather data. So it's beyond just the social good that your idea has. From Comlink as a business, I think it has real value add potential. So I love
Awesome.
that.
Thank you.
Okay, so let's just jump in. Before I start blathering at you, is anybody got a comment or question before we begin?
Oh, Michael, I was just going to add for Mel as well. I saw a documentary which was running out of Canberra, I think, and it was new mothers in elderly homes. And they were like removed from the family, so they were first-time new mothers. And they were taking the babies in there. So they were kind of having a mother's club and getting advice off everyone and doing stuff together like that. And they were saying that one of the most lonely periods in a woman's life is when she first gives birth. So, yeah, so just I'm sure it was on SBS or ABC a couple of weeks ago. Yeah.
Sure. No, I appreciate that. I'll check that out.
Emma, if you can find any kind of contact or URL or name that you can shoot Mel, that'd be good. Everybody's got everybody's email addresses, right? I just sent everybody's address, yeah.
Sorry, Michael, I just had one thought on that too, because media and social media, I actually, when I'm not doing this kind of stuff, I'm also have an arts therapy career, and a couple of the people I work with work in aged care, and it's a very hot topic, the intergenerational thing. So, when you're starting a business, it's good to place yourself, I'm sure Michael will show you, but on the bell curve. And I think if you get in early, and while there is a lot of buzz from the ABC program, things like the SBS, it's talked about, I know it's being talked about in a lot of settings, so to be able to not to be callous, but to capitalize on that kind of interest. And people are definitely looking for something new in aged care that can improve the system, particularly with new standards coming out. So yeah, I just think it might be a really good time.
Awesome. That's exciting.
I think it might be worthwhile, Mel, if I can just jump in and just let everyone know that Mel has set up a I guess, like a trial session for next Monday in Ipswich with, I think, about 8 to 10 home care package clients are coming into the office to spend a couple of hours with a group of cubs, Boy Scout cubs.
Oh,
And they age from 5 to 10, I think it is. The cubs are preparing morning tea for the clients, and we're going to interview them. We've got marketing coming down with us to film it all. So it's happening, and it's interesting. Mel, actually, this idea that Mel is taking on, it came about months and months ago, long before the ABC documentary, and then all of a sudden everybody's talking about this thing. So our ideas, it seems like everybody's probably in the same boat. Our ideas are certainly there, and we're thinking of them before we even see them being put into practice. We're just now using this platform to bring them to life. So it's pretty exciting.
it reminds me of another one that's cooked up that somebody's yet to make real at Comlink, and that is using access to fleet and volunteer drivers for young people to get up their driving hours. You know, when they're going for their license, they've got to have X number of hours supervised, not with clients in the car, but picking up and dropping off the vehicle itself, you know, because families are finding it really hard to actually do all the hours sitting beside the 17-year-old who's going for his keys. You know, and you start getting something like that. That's a good kind of concrete reason. But then you've got a conversation happening between the kid and with most of our volunteers are over 65. You've got intergenerational conversation as a kind of consequence of that. Okay, before we start, I just wanted to mention too that I've talked about this with Peter and Rosie, and for paid staff, Comlink is happy for you to claim time off in lieu for work that you're doing on your projects in the Intrapreneurs program. Now, that's something that I don't know how much time that might be. It was fairly modest in the last delivery. It involved, you know, there was a garden starting up near Bertinia, and Michaela wanted to go over and look at that, and Comlink was very happy for her to do that in working hours. It'll be sort of as depends on the project, really. So that if that's valuable for you and you can use that, then the process would be to consult your line manager in the first place. And if they don't know already, tell them about that policy, and then to consult with me, and I'll okay it with management for you to have that time off in lieu. All right, so I'm going to share a screen now if I can remember. I've got to share this. Oh yes, here it is. I'm going to share a screen. Well, that's interesting. Not telling me. I've got the file open, and it's not telling me it's going to share. So bear with me for a second. Weird. So I'm going to close that and reopen it. Grand old principle of turn it off and turn it on again.
Steph, I was just going to say that my mum's like a retired hairdresser, so you could also maybe look at getting retired hairdressers and retired beauticians or something, because my mum loves to talk, so she could do that with old people all day.
Thank you.
And Steph, I was thinking as well, while Michael was talking to you, about perhaps you could separate your groups into clients that are mobile and active and participate in the community versus clients who are a little bit more recluse and don't like to, you know, they're a little bit more isolated. So
Yeah.
whether the hairdresser goes to the client's home or whether you run a little salon in the office type of thing.
Okay, yeah, cool. Thank you.
Cool. Are we seeing the screen, folks?
Yes.
Yeah.
Comlink Intrapreneurs Webinar 2?
Yes.
Phew.
Yeah.
Thank goodness. Again, these will be, I'll upload this along with the video that is recording now tomorrow and send you the Dropbox URLs. This is just a recap of our process. So we're now in webinar 2, and we're finishing off the now section. We probably won't go into marketing tonight. I don't particularly want to overburden these first couple of sessions. I'm feeling like we need to get into a certain kind of momentum. We'll start talking about the online offering. I don't know if you've seen at the RTO's website, ALA, Australasian Leadership Academy, a component of this course is an online exam. You should have access to that now. It's two sets of questions, and really those questions are designed for you to be able to really just literally, if you want, copy the question, paste it into Google search and get an answer. I'm sort of unapologetic about that because most of it is material, legalistic information. So questions about workplace health and safety, for example, which are more or less relevant to different people depending on what their business is. So I choose not to spend a lot of time in our live interaction on matters like workplace health and safety. While they are important for many businesses, they're less important for others, and I don't want to spend time on something that's relevant just to one person. Sometimes legals about if somebody had a catering idea, for example, there's a whole nest of regulations about local government, usually regulations about how you prepare and sell food that might be entirely irrelevant to everybody else. So the online exam is really those sorts of questions. How would you go about registering a business name? Those sorts of fairly 1, 2, 3 mechanical questions. I prefer to keep our process here at a higher level than that. That said, I'm always available to give you feedback as promptly as I can if any of that's confusing. You should be able to go into that and just fill it out. It's just an online tick and flick or fill in the box, click next, and it's finished. What I've already found myself recommending is the gas groups. So really from this point onwards, I'm encouraging you to connect with each other. With or without my presence, this has come about just because we've noticed in the past that people kind of get excited about their ideas, and we've already seen just tonight examples of how edgies want to help each other. That just seems to be comes with the turf. So the gas groups, you can do this as often as you want in whatever form you want. So some people meet after work over drinks. Some people have a coffee during the workday or meet half an hour before work over a coffee. Some people do it by email. We've had I can remember a 2-person gas group where every week they agreed to ask each other a simple question and answer that question. I think I have guidelines in Dropbox for the gas groups. Has anybody seen those? I'll just check that. I'm pretty sure I've got gas group guidelines there, but if I haven't, I'll make sure that they're there and send you an email. These, again, it's entirely your responsibility what shape those meetings take, how often they take. Part of the evaluation for the Cert 3, though, is gas groups checklist, as we call it, and that's as much about recommending what you might talk about. It's not prescriptive. You don't have to talk about anything like that, and you can give it any shape you want, but it's just to suggest the sorts of things. So there's questions like, have you discussed what kind of investment your project might need from government or from the private sector? Have you discussed whether the customer you're looking at is changing, whether they're getting older, younger, richer, poorer, further away, closer in, whatever. So there's just questions like that that our experience has told us people find useful to consider. We're going to finish the Now tools tonight. There's 2 more tools to learn, and then the first of the Where tools. And from our next meeting, from webinar 3, you'll start to hear Amanda's voice, hopefully as much as mine, once I get my ass into gear and back to work properly. Any questions about this? No? Okay. So, tell me how many dolphins are in this picture? Anybody?
3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Yeah. Paul, you can't see any dolphins.
I can't. Does that say something about me psychologically, does it?
Yeah, it's not a psychology test. I mean, we all see, well, most of us as adults see the soft porn, right? We have to look for a while before we see the dolphins. Children, Mel might like to check this.
Oh, yeah.
Children typically see the dolphins straight away. That is, we come to learn to see the world in certain ways. We think that we're seeing the world in a natural way, but it's not the case. As we get older and our experience expands, then the world teaches us to look at the world in a particular way. And the way that we see the world is the way the world becomes. This is really following on from my first comment in the first webinar about the personal journey. Your journey as an entrepreneur is not only to come up with terrific new ideas, but to actually become as good as you can be as a professional and as a worker and as an enterpriser. There's this thing called the entrepreneurial gaze. It's sort of related. People talk about the male gaze, the female gaze, the gay gaze, the this gaze, the that gaze. That is the spectacles that we put on, that we use to filter the world. And the entrepreneurial gaze is a gaze that asks the question, where is the opportunity, typically? So I'm already receiving really encouraging signs, not just from this group, but from other people who have yet to do this program at Bertinia, that is indicating that this kind of virus is out there in the company. People are looking at their work, they're looking at the situation they find themselves in, and they're asking, where's the opportunity? Where's the opportunity? That's all that makes somebody an entrepreneur, the habit of mind of asking that question, where is the opportunity? So one of my customers, one of my coaching clients is a photographer, and I was interested in what makes him a photographer, you know, like, isn't everybody a photographer now that we've got these smartphones? Like, you know, and he actually does take the photos with his smartphone. But if you put his smartphone photos beside mine, you'll be able to tell straight away which one of us is the professional photographer. Now, what's going on there? What I think is going on is that he has a photographer's or an artist's gaze. He looks at the world in frames. He's constantly looking at where the light is, where the frame is, so that when he brings his machine, the camera, or whatever it is, into action, he's ready for it because he's seen the world in a certain kind of way. That's what I'm encouraging you to do all the way through this. Think like an entrepreneur, because if you think like an entrepreneur, you become an entrepreneur. You start seeing the dolphin straight away. So on this matter of yourself, you might know about the TED Talks, TED.com. These are people from all over the world who are experts in what they do, no matter what that is. They give them 18 minutes on stage. It's a very expensive conference to go to. It's in California, of course, near Silicon Valley. So the people who attend this conference are very successful, often in this private startup entrepreneurship sort of space. Fortunately, they record everything and it's free. So if you go to TED.com, you can look at, by now there's hundreds of talks there. But some bright spark actually asked the question, what do these people think success is? And you might recall from our first webinar that I asked you how you would know that this course has been successful. And in fact, we've learned a success tool. How do you know your customer is successful? Not how your customer is satisfied, but how your customer is successful. So I'm going to suggest now that you apply the outcome of this TED research to yourself, because this is what people said over a series of years. These are people, Americans, who are successful. And by the end of this little bit of my rave, I'm going to ask you, of these various elements of success, what would you consider your strength? And second, what you would consider your weakness relative to the others. So starting with passion, it's the thing that keeps you awake. It's the thing that wakes you up at 3 o'clock in the morning. It's the thing that turns you on. It's the thing that actually you have a passion about your cake shop. You have a passion about donuts. You have a passion about makeup with the elderly and how good people feel when they have a do, a new do, or whatever. Passion is something that drives you. Passion is also something that can make you suffer because of that, and artists will often report that. Passion comes from passio, to suffer, the Latin word to suffer. At Comlink, we quite often use the word compassion, and literally, for a word freak like me, that means to suffer together. Com, together, passio, to suffer. To feel compassion is to act as if you're sharing somebody's suffering. So passion is what these TED success stories identify as part of their success. Work relates to that to me. Like if you're passionate about learning the guitar, you will actually play those scales. You will actually work and practice to get good at what you're doing because you're passionate about it. So hard work leads to success. Focus is where we're going to finish with a tool tonight that actually is about exactly this. Focus is different from goals. Focus is having a picture of where you will be when you are successful. So a very famous business book is called The 7 Habits of Highly Successful People, of Highly Effective People, by Stephen Covey. I can give you the reference if you like. It's in every bookshop. It's never been out of print. 7 things that successful people do, or habits of mind. And one of those he calls start with the end in view. If you have now a clear idea of what success is for you, then you will make more intelligent decisions in the here and now. Persistence, really critical. Sometimes you could call that commitment. Persistence is not taking no for an answer. Persistence is staying focused and work and keeping. Sometimes it can lead to the tunnel vision, you know, sometimes it can be code for obsessive compulsive disorder, which I've come across quite often in the arts world. But persistence is actually tenacity and sticking with stuff. Ideas is creativity, is thinking outside the box, thinking sideways, thinking in innovative ways. And often a lot of people think I think it's overrated, personally. I think creativity is overrated. I think sustaining is as important as creating. But there it is, coming up with novel ideas. If you can, then good luck to you. It's very, very difficult to come up with something that's entirely new. Being good at what you do. This is what people report as an element of their success. And I think that goes with work. I think if you are passionate about the guitar, you play those scales like Jimi Hendrix. You're all too young to remember Jimi Hendrix, the famous guitar player. Jimmy used to take his guitar to the toilet. Jimmy used to fall asleep with his guitar on top of him. He would not let the thing go. Because of that, he just got bloody good at the guitar, you know. Push sometimes a problem for people in the arts and sometimes the community sector, in my experience. Push means getting stuff done, just bloody getting paid, you know? Push means being a little bit pushy, a little bit out there. I call it the chip of ice in the blood. Sometimes you're in business, you know? Sometimes you just got to get paid. And service, well, it won't be a big surprise to this group. Service is doing something for others. Tammy gave us a perfect example of that in the check-in. She told us, if I remember correctly, that she and Mel did this terrific thing, this lovely, generous thing for an old lady in a certain state, and surprised herself by feeling good about it herself. We know that giving something feels good, you know, so service. Very often that's service to your customer, but that can also be service to a greater good, whether you call that God or the community or the commune or whatever it is, something higher and bigger than you are. Okay, so I'm going to do this at random because I haven't got time to ask everybody the question, what's your strength and what's your weakness? But let me dob you in, Paul. Of all of these things, which is your strongest trait?
Yeah, I found that very hard, but I suppose if I had to pick up one, it would be serving. I think I've been a public servant in all of my career, and in many ways I feel as that's something it's about the focus on student learning outcomes or students' welfare, and associated with that, it was teachers, the community, it was parents and so on. So I think serving is my strength, and probably my area of challenge is ideas, as what you were saying. You know, maybe it's overrated, I don't know, but it's coming up with the ideas, and it's only through those conversations with other people, I think, sometimes does that set a light bulb go.
Thank you. Jay, what's your strength?
I'm probably leaning towards work and focus.
Mm-hmm.
I definitely know that serve would be my weakness. Most of you.
Excellent. Mel, what's your strength? You got to turn your mic on.
My strength, I would say, service and passion.
Mm-hmm.
And I wish I was a lot better with coming up with great ideas.
Okay, cool. And I could do this with everybody, but I don't want to spend that much time on this. I think we just heard 3 different answers, 3 different formulas, and I'm pretty sure that if we talk to everybody else, there would be different strengths and different weaknesses. Part of your journey in this process is to understand what those are, to play to your strengths and to deal with your weaknesses. So if you feel that the weakness, Paul and Mel both talked about ideas as a challenge or something in front of them, then there's other people in this group that will have strengths in that area. Get with them and exchange ideas. There's this thing that happens with human beings. You get three of us together, you don't get 3 times the smarts. You get about 3.5 times the smarts. Because we're social animals, you get us in a group, then ideas seem to pop up. I don't know if you've ever experienced that. It's pretty common for me. It's like, where did that idea come from? You know, it's like when we get together and we start yarning and we start exchanging ideas, things just seem to pop up. So I can't recommend that strategy too much. I talked about action precedes clarity last time. These are 3 of 8 statues in what was called the Slave series by Michelangelo. He died before he could complete these, but I think they're among his most successful works because, for me anyway, there's this sense of tension in these statues. They're slightly larger than life size. It's like these people, these men, they're all males, are pushing against the stone. They're emerging from the stone. And I just want to emphasize this. It reinforces what a few of you are already telling us you're doing, the homework, the background, and also this idea of emergence when we get together in gas groups. Michelangelo famously claimed that he could see the form in the block before he picked up his tools. So this is like that entrepreneurial gaze thing that I talked about, or Mark, the photographer, and carrying frames around with him. Michelangelo carried these frames around with him before he touched the block, before he picked up the hammer and the chisel and the tools. He could see the figure. Now, for the relevance to our story is that very often I'd like to suggest to you the solution that you're looking for, if things are a bit fuzzy, so for Jay, say, what if I was to suggest to you that the solution you're looking for is there already? That's not actually the problem. The solution is in the block. The thing is, the problem is that you can't see it. So sometimes creativity, we often think of creativity as like, you know, putting Lego bricks together and building things in a sequence. Sometimes I think creativity is about cutting the crap. Creativity is about getting rid of the stuff that you don't need in your idea, so that the actual idea that was there all along can emerge. Sometimes creative people will actually say that. They'll be painting or making music, whatever they do, and something will happen and they'll go, Jesus, where did that come from? It seems to come out of nowhere. And what I think is happening is they're unlocking what's there, what was there already, and surprising themselves. So again, don't beat yourself up if you haven't built something so far. Sometimes it's about just sowing a seed, and well, let's say you sow a seed. What you don't do is keep digging it up to see how it's going, right? You sow a seed, what you do then is water it and keep the weeds away, and trust that sooner or later it will actually emerge, the idea that was already there. Okay, the last part of this sermon is about failure. Michael Jordan, again, you're all too young to remember Michael Jordan, famous basketball player. I've missed more than 9,000 shots in my career. I've lost almost 300 games. 26 times I've been trusted to take the game-winning shot and missed. I've failed over and over and over again in my life, and that is why I succeed. This little part of the sermon is about failure. We're not schooled to take failure the way that we should, which is an opportunity to learn something. We're schooled to believe that when we fuck up, that it's somehow a judgment from the universe that we are a loser. And this is not something that leads to entrepreneurial success. Any and every successful entrepreneur will say something like Michael Jordan says. It's a process of making mistakes, learning from the mistakes, making mistakes, learning from the mistakes. Whoa. So try again, fail better. Do not be afraid of failure. We're going to touch on this again a little bit further down the road when we talk about risk and risk analysis. If we are genuinely innovating, then we are taking risks. Pretty much everybody can ride a bike. Actually, Theda told me the other day she can't ride a bike. One of her goals in life is to learn how to ride a bicycle. I give her such a hard time about that. But most people can. Is there anybody here who cannot ride a bike?
It hurts your bum when you haven't done it for a long time.
Ain't it the truth? My God, my dusty cobweb bike back home. When you ride a bike, you fall off, right? Every now and then you fall off. Do you stop riding? No. You get on the thing again and you ride it better. It's exactly the same. That's all I'm saying about failure. Understand that you will make mistakes. Understand that those are opportunities to actually get better.
Michael, just on that, with Feeder not being able to ride a bike, either can Robin. In fact, Robin fell off an exercise bike.
Wow,
hilarious.
There's a bit of a project.
We can pay her out.
Unreal. That's something we can do something about, I think.
Yeah.
And this goes with fear for me. It goes with failure. The fear of failure. You'll notice it comes from a book called The Courage to Fail. Failure is not a judgment from the universe that you are a loser. I've just highlighted bits of this list and I don't want to particularly overtax the conversation, but it teaches us more than success can teach us. It reminds us to be kinder to ourselves and those around us. It develops patience, which goes with the success factor for me that I've already shared with you, which is persistence and commitment. We need to be patient and trust the process. And it reminds us not to take things so bloody personally. You know, we're not the authors of the universe. Occasionally, the universe actually bites us on the bum, and we need to actually just be okay with that. So failure and risk go together, and fear is not useful. There is actually an international organization now called Fuck Up Nights, and these are, it's hugely successful. I think in Brisbane and the Gold Coast, they hold these every now and then. And what these are is people who get together and they stand up and share with each other how they have made mistakes and what they have learned about it. It's a big popular movement. It's big in Silicon Valley. It's about celebrating failure, not in a negative sense, but as an opportunity to learn. So if you'd like to know more about it, it's fuckupnights.com. You might like to attend one. Comes out of Mexico. Go figure. This is what we're working on now. We're finishing the now tools tonight. We'll start with the where tools tonight, and then we'll progress to the how tools. So the now, where, how structure is going to produce, you will use these tools to produce a one-page plan, which looks something like this. Here's an example from up on the coast, a designer. Now, where, and how. Here's one from an architecture firm. Now, where, and how. Here's one from alternative health crystals Reiki person. Now, where, and how underneath the crystals and the cards. This is Tim, the young man with a series of disabilities, whose story I shared with you last week, who's successfully using his one-page plan to run a seedlings business, a veggie seedlings business up around Gympie. This is the gas group's suggestions that I talked about, and I'll double check that these are available to you. This is just a suggestion, just based on experience of the sorts of things you might like to discuss outside this particular, outside the webinars and the whole group sessions. You might like to discuss customers and their needs. There was an example of that right at the start where Steph was saying, well, male or female, how else can I actually break up my customer groups? You might like to talk about new ideas. So those of you who have identified creative or innovative ideas as a challenge might like to interrogate those, bring those up in conversations. You might like to talk about the finances. You will discover when we get to the financial section of this course that is certainly one of my challenges. I just don't think in terms of money at all. And that's a real disadvantage if I'm talking about business, right? But I'm learning, I fail, I learn. You might like to talk about who can look after you. How are you going to look after yourself, both personally and professionally? That's an example of the sort of content you might like to sow into those conversations, and actions that actually stem from those. And notice the thing 1, 2, 3, fourth dot point under the word action. The identification of onboard strengths and resources. This is really important in Anglo-Australian culture because it's derived from the colonial British experience. We don't like to talk ourselves up. We don't like to talk about our strengths and how good we are at stuff. And I'm encouraging you to drop that. In this process, in this conversation, work from a position of strength. Understand that you are already strong in all sorts of ways. Understand that you already have access to all sorts of resources. Work from that point. These are the sorts of things that in our experience people have reported that they find useful for. Don't think I particularly want to emphasize any of these. If you're just reading those, is there anything that pops out that you think is worth having a bit of a worth noting at this point? No.
Michael, one of the things there, I suppose, is even though you've got it listed as prioritisation focus, when you're going through the process, you can get a bit overwhelmed. So just bring yourself back to basics.
Mm. Mm.
In these discussions.
And sometimes, and I'm a bit concerned. I was concerned not only in the previous webinar series, but in other online connections. Like when we're in person, I can read your body language and I can get a sense if people experience that kind of overwhelm, Emma, if people are not getting it, if I'm pushing too much into people's heads. And I interrogated that a bit last time with people as feedback. And some people, yes, some people, because I'm so familiar with this stuff, do report that it's coming in too fast. Too much is coming in too fast, which is why the slides are there and this is being recorded and etc. Generally, people, one person last time, it became a bit of a meme in the last series. We actually started talking about trust the process. Even if you feel like you're missing something right now, trust the process. It will emerge. And when it does, you're exactly right. It should do so in a really simple way. The way that we were talking about the value propositions last time, the ones that are best are the ones that are simplest. And simple is not easy. Simple does not mean easy. In fact, the reverse. Simple can be very difficult. So great point. Thank you. Any other comments? Okay. I'm going to talk about that. You remember this, or you may remember this from the first webinar. It's sort of, the why. And that's particularly relevant. It plays to your value proposition as well. For each of those ideas, for your idea at the moment, ask yourself the question, why? Why should that idea exist? What makes it possible? What makes, why does the world need this? How would you answer the question? Why? So let's say I have an idea about makeovers that help my customers feel good, delivered in their home when they can't afford to or don't have the mobility to get to a hairdresser. Why? Because feeling good is healthy and some women feel fantastic when they have a makeover, you know? It doesn't have to be fancy. Simple is good, but be prepared to ask the question why. Because from there, if you answer the question that way, okay, so some people feel fantastic and they're healthier if they have a makeover every now and then, feel a bit special. How do you do that? Well, we provide mobile, and what does that look like? It looks like an offer that goes out with comlinks, literature, etc. So if you get the why right, the rest tends to flow. Remember the 4 key questions. And we need answers to each of these questions if we're going to have a business that works. What's your product? What's the thing of value your business idea brings into the world? Second question, who's your customer? Who will benefit, or in our language, who will be successful because of that thing of value that you have brought into the world? How will that make them successful? Question 3, what is the nature of that value? How does that value count for that customer? And value can be a range of things. It can be financial value, it can be personal value, it can be social value, it can be spiritual value, or a mixture of all of those. Question 4, what makes your thing of value, your product, different? Now, in cut and dried business terms, different just means competitive. Okay, so it might be my product's different because it's cheaper. That's called the Burger King, or here it's Hungry Jack's, the Hungry Jack's business case. Look at what McDonald's is doing, then do the same thing slightly cheaper. Yeah, that's all they do. They just do what McDonald's do, a bit cheaper. I'm hoping that I know that everybody here has ideas that are a little bit fancier than that. And therefore, we're talking not just about financial value, but social value, personal value, and value to yourself. Tammy's insight was lovely there. I'm really inspired by that, that this act of generosity actually creates benefit for ourselves. I used the metaphor of the 10 pins in the bowling alley when we talked about that first tool, the very first one, the product market differentiation or segmentation tool. It asks us to put products and customers in a column and in a row, and then look at what value the customer sees in that product in order to come up with that first pin, the front pin, the one that we need to knock down first, because we're lazy, right? We're lazy and smart. This is what I'm recommending. Think as if you were lazy. Look for the shortcut. Look for the simple workaround. So I'm revising what we've done so far, okay? And these are the 3 tools that we looked at last week. So I just want to pause here and leave the floor open for a second for those of you who've engaged with these. First of all, that customer product tool that I just mentioned. Second, the value proposition. And third, the customer success tool. Is there anything that, if you've engaged with these so far, that you would like to share with us?
Michael, for the third one, the customer success.
Yeah.
Would it be normal for all of your responses to be the same for each customer? Is it okay for that?
Yeah.
Cool.
There's no right or wrong in any of this, and
Okay.
every single case will be different. But it might be, if you remember Frank's success story, his pistachio nut coffee substitute. There were different success factors for the customers, but it might be just prestige. And prestige is then expressed with the girlfriend, prestige is then expressed with peers, prestige is then expressed in the marketplace, etc. So it's the same value, but then it's just indicated different ways. So if it's about prestige defined as success with my girlfriend, and I'm running that coffee shop, I'm going to do something special on Valentine's Day. And that might be the action that comes from it. These are really kind of like palettes, like an artist's palette, you know. Take and use what's useful. And similarly, if you find that any of these tools and any of the ones we're about to learn are just not relevant to you at the moment, it's absolutely fine with me for you to just put nil or not applicable on the tool. It's got to be real. It's got to be practical for you. You know, it's not just filling in the boxes because they're there to be filled in. Thank you for the question. Any other questions or comments?
My comment is really particularly around the value proposition. I found that extremely useful to narrow down exactly what I was trying to focus on. As I'm sure I haven't got the wording right, but using that example at the bottom was very helpful for me. Just to refer back to that as I go back up through and fill out each component. So I'm keen to share it with someone like Emma if I can at some stage. Yeah, be keen to do that.
Thank you, Paul. Are you in a place where you can actually share a draft of that with us?
I can share it. As I said, I don't think the wording's right, but I can do that if you like. For Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders 50 years of age or older who want cost-effective and culturally sensitive access to transportation, the communication strategy is a way to engage Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders that is informative and tailored to their needs and circumstances. Unlike other transport services, our product or service is more cost-effective and responsive to the individual needs of clients. I don't know. As I said, it's my attempt, and I know that'll probably need some rewording. I specifically wanted to use the full title, Aboriginals and Torres Strait Islanders, not Indigenous, because I know I want this to be meaning and purposeful for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders as individuals. Not, I know in some communities, Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders, for instance, don't like the term Indigenous; it's too generic. So I'm keen to actually walk alongside someone with an Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander background in all of this. Really, at the end of the day, it has to happen that way. Yeah.
Good, thank you. It takes guts to share this sort of thing because it's often quite personal as well, personally meaningful. In fact, it should be personally meaningful. I personally really like the phrase "walking beside people." They use that in South Africa quite a lot. It's sort of Rainbow Nation. You don't have to agree with people. So long as you actually have the same destination in mind and you're walking in the same direction and you're not getting in each other's way, that's often enough, you know. I think that's a good first draft, Paul. That's my first feeling. Any other comments on Paul's value proposition? Okay. Any other comments about the tools so far? Anybody feeling overwhelmed? Cool. Time for number 4. Looks like this. Changes affecting my business. One of the things that makes a success, I think, is responsiveness. It's the capacity to turn on a dime. As your market changes, your product needs to change too. So this tool is about doing a scan around your business idea. The acronym that is often used is PEST. If you look at political, economic, social, cultural, and technical, that's in the column on the left, ways of seeing change. That's often thrown into business training. These days, it's sometimes PESTEL, so there's environmental and then legal changes or elements of your business. And then for us, it's changes in products, customers, and in suppliers. Now, some of these are going to be relevant to you and some of these are not. As I said before with the tools generally, if it's not relevant to you, don't bother filling it in. It might be relevant to you in 3 months, 6 months, or a year. If it's not relevant and practical right now, forget about it. Like most of the tools from this point on, part of the value, even though we're talking about the now, is that we're anticipating the how. We're anticipating the action that we can take that's going to make a real difference in our marketplace. So that's about the right-hand column. Given the changes that I see, given the dynamics that surround my business, what can I do? What action can I take? Why do I keep harping on this? Because action precedes clarity. If we want to get clear, if we want to get the cleanest, simplest, most effective business out there, we should try it out. We should try out those ideas. Paul's already understanding that. He knows with his value proposition, he's got to bounce it off people, get feedback. You know, he's particularly aware that as yet another well-meaning white fella introducing himself into what he's calling Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander circles, that he needs to do that kind of work. So I've given an example that I'm reworking these as on the fly because I'm working on a business here too, and that business idea is called Comlink Intrapreneurs. What we're actually doing part of the objective for me over the next 6 months is to commercialize this process so that Comlink, in association with my company, Edgeware, can actually take this to market. And we can offer this to SME-sized not-for-profits like Sunshine Coast University Hospital as a commercial product. Yeah, so something that can earn Comlink money. So the examples I'm going to give you are actually based on what I'm actually working through in the real world as we speak, okay? Haven't given it a name yet. Let's call it Comlink Intrapreneurship. So here's an example. Sorry, somebody's calling. In terms of political changes surrounding that idea. So my value proposition is something like, for small SME-sized not-for-profits which wish to become more entrepreneurial, which wish to develop an entrepreneurship, an entrepreneurial culture, the Comlink Intrapreneurship program offers professional development training, which is geared directly to outcomes in the workplace. Unlike TAFE and university and private RTO training, our product is grounded in the day-to-day reality of working in the workplace. I don't know if that's what it is, but I just made that up, okay? And I'm trying to demonstrate the way that format of a value proposition just gets into your head after a while. So I've just made up a value proposition based on that idea. So that's the idea, right? Taking this process and commercializing it and scaling it. Now, if that's what I want to do, what are the political changes, or what is the political environment that I should be aware of? And in terms of politics that affects us, particularly federal health funding, what I notice is a trend towards fee for service. That the real value of the government dollar being spent on aged care is reducing, and that increasingly we have to charge for at least part of the services that we provide. Once upon a time, that wasn't the case. If that's the case, looking across that row now, in the third column, what can we do? What can my product do to address that change or to be responsive to that change? And I would suggest it's about growing the company culture, growing the culture inside the company that incentivizes and rewards entrepreneurship. Economic changes, aged care is increasingly expensive because people are living longer, the technology and the medicine is getting better and it's dear. What can I do? I can emphasize value for money. Okay, the same money it's going to cost you to do this course or to put your staff through this course, you're going to actually save money. Social cultural changes, we've got the boomers coming through. There's lots of them and they're used to spending money. I mean, the reason there is a self-help industry is because of the baby boomers. There wasn't one before the Second World War. All those self-help books that you see in the bookshops, that's for my generation. We believe in that. So what can I do? I can emphasize in my marketing the self-help benefits. And in a way, that's what I've been doing with you too. When I emphasize the fact that this course helps you become a better version of you, I'm appealing to the self-help sensibility of that generation. Technological changes. This is very recent for me. It's just stuff I was listening to this morning on the drive up to Batinia. The 5G rollout, 3G, 4G, 5G on phones is going to have a profound effect in our marketplace. It's not just speed of upload and download from devices, but it's the access of devices to access points, so-called. So in 4G systems at the moment, the number of devices which can access a single internet node is measured in the hundreds. Under the 5G systems, that will be measured in the millions. This means that we can start to imagine devices, like the example I heard was, imagine a toothbrush, which when you brush your teeth actually takes a saliva swab and gives you dynamic feedback on the state of your health that you can measure from your saliva. That is a smart toothbrush. This is called the Internet of Things. Now, in my view, we can actually, we should be responsive to the potential that this opens up for our customers. It's not about robots and computers anymore. It's about your shoes, and your lamp and your toothbrush and etc. All of these things are going to be networked. That's what I've got to do. I've got to be across all of that stuff. Environmental changes I didn't find relevant, I left it blank. Legal changes, people are tightening up on vocational education training. Emma could actually rave to us about that, I'm sure. The amount of red tape she has to wade through as an RPO is just mind-boggling. What do I do with that in terms of this project? I make sure our relationship with our RPO partner is really sweet. I spend time on that. I allocate resources to that. Changes in products, people are getting less and less turned on by qualifications, bachelor of this, master of that, and they're increasingly cherry picking the education that they want. So I only want to do marketing 101 and finances 2. I'm not interested in your bachelor of business. I just want to have those skills. So what am I going to do? I'm going to look at the ways that this course can integrate with Sunshine Coast Pay, let's say. So you do the Edgeware Comlink Intrapreneurship course, you come out with a Cert 3, University of Sunshine Coast says, we'll give you course credit toward the Bachelor of Business because of that. Changes in customers, people are living longer and aging in place. What can I do? I can actually develop this product not only for staff, for you guys, but for our customers. They're living longer in place. How can we use these same skills, either as Comlink or through our staff, to help our customers, those for whom it's relevant, create their own little businesses, their own little side hustles to augment the pension or whatever it is that they're doing. Changes in suppliers, TAFE is beefing up, government loves TAFE. They're getting increasingly aggressive. They are getting better. They're still pretty pathetic, but they're getting better at what they're doing. What am I going to do about that? I'm going to emphasize pedagogical difference, which is the fancy way of saying the learning experience. This is not TAFE style education, as I hope has become clear by now. This is based on real world workplace projects, not some abstract learning thing. Then I've made a note, you don't have to fill in this or anything else. The training helps organisations, but also their customers to become more entrepreneurial. So we might be able to, let's say Mel's intergenerational stuff is happening. In Scotland now, they've introduced social enterprise into the primary school curriculum. So those cubs that Temi was telling us about, if they were in Scotland, they would actually be doing business training at the moment. Now imagine the value add that might come about if you've got a 10-year-old and a 60-year-old going into a business together. Why should we not think that is possible? So that's a note. And that actually points me backwards. And this is a feature of this tool set, folks. We can actually use these tools to look back, to go back. You're learning the tools 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, but you might find that you get to tool number 4, like this one. And in this case, I'm going, oh, right, maybe my customers are not just people working for not-for-profits, but their customers, the people that they're working for. Maybe they should be a customer group that I'm looking at as well. So I'm going to go back to that very first tool and add them in as a potential new customer for this product. That's just a note to me that I'm making on the side. Any questions about this?
Michael, sorry. Can I just add in under environmental, just to add an example there? Is that okay?
Yep, please.
So under environmental, I would say all organisations are becoming increasingly aware of climate change and the impact that's going to have on business. So you'd go back to your political change stuff and saying growing an entrepreneurial company culture encourages the workers to buy in on addressing climate change or coming up with suggestions for the organisation to address climate change.
Excellent suggestion, thank you.
Also on that note, Michael, using webinars, for example, none of us have had to travel tonight to be together. So your actual delivery mode is actually paperless, it's online, emphasising some of those things.
I've noticed in particularly businesses the size of Comlink and larger, there used to be, well, there is this thing called CSR, corporate social responsibility, which is until fairly recently was always kind of like tacked on to the end of the annual report. And I think increasingly, as Emma points out, the culture is changing. It's actually no good for most businesses, except maybe the coal industry, at the till anymore, at the point of sale, to actually be seen to be damaging the environment. So we've got a nice confluence, a coming together there of something that's actually good for the planet and good for business. Thank you, Emma. That's an excellent point. Any other comments or questions? Cool. Another tool, and this is the last of the where of the now tool. Sometimes people have a problem with the notion of competition. If you remember back in the value proposition, the second sentence begins with the word unlike. And depending on the nature of the business it is, that's an opportunity to name your competition. In purely business terms, your competition is the people who are making claim on your righteous profit. Yeah, people that are actually going to cut in to your profitability. Now, in terms of a not-for-profit, in terms of a company like Comlink, we're certainly not for loss. We're certainly not about throwing money around. We certainly do want to run at a profit. It's just that our profit goes back into the community, not into people's pocket. So we could say that there are other people in the transport domain or home services domain who are competing with us for that subsidy, for that user fee or what have you. It doesn't matter what language you use. Really, for people who have a problem with the word competition, I would suggest that you think in terms of differentiation. Why should somebody hire Comlink to do such and such? Hairdressing, transport, home care, intergenerational respite, whatever it is. Why should they come to us rather than somebody else? What is our secret sauce? How do we do it in a way that makes us stand out from the pack? So, you know, sometimes artists will say, I'm an artist, I don't do competition, I don't compete, I must do art. Well, yes, but if you want to be a professional artist and you put a painting with a $2,000 price tag next to another painting from another artist with a $2,000 price tag, and somebody standing in front of those paintings with $2,000 in their pocket, it's going to go somewhere, you know, whether you call that competition or not. So this is about a competitor analysis. And again, we know the business we're talking about this business, the Intrapreneurship program. And I would suggest that a direct competitor is TAFE. I've done a scan of the Cert 3 micro business operations, the qualification you will emerge with, and who else offers that. And the only really credible competitor is TAFE, which offers an online version of the Cert 3 micro business operations. So I'm going to ask 4 questions, and then I'm going to ask an action question. So right at the right hand, in the right hand column, how do we compete, is the action bit. Given all of this analysis, what am I going to do when it comes around to the how section of this process? So it's 4 questions. It's really asking 2 questions 2 different ways. I hope that'll be clear by the time I've explained it. So if TAFE is our competitor, what is their strength compared to us? Well, they're enormous. They can actually absorb a lot of the costs that we would actually have to find money for. Costs like research and development and marketing. And another strength compared to us is that government loves them. Right or wrong, Labor or Liberals, you know, the Tories will talk about the skill shortage and how we need more Sparkies and Chippies and that. Labor will talk about jobs, jobs, jobs. Whoever it is, TAFE is often the nominated provider of training, and they're after our money for the Cert 3, right? Their weakness, if TAFE is our competitor compared to us, it's the same. They're really big, which means that they're bureaucratic, and they do stuff like government does it, which is pretty mediocre. And because they're really big and because they're government, semi-government owned, they're really slow and cumbersome. So we're boxing with a giant. The giant has certain strengths if we get inside his reach, but he's certainly pretty weak if we can stay nimble. Now, the next two questions are the various variations in the same question, but different stuff can come up. So our strengths compared to them is that we're going to be business-like. We're going to be, even though we're not for profit, we're going to behave like entrepreneurs. TAFE workers, in my experience, rarely do that. They're typically like government-funded bureaucrats. I know for a fact that Amanda, like me, has been a professional teacher in Education Queensland, and I would be very surprised if she would disagree with that. It's a culture of mediocrity. So, consistent with that, what we've got going for us is an innovation culture. We're going to actually incentivize and reward innovation, and our other strength is that we're industry-based. We know what we're talking about. We're not some abstract TAFE class in business. We're actually aged care providers. That's what we're good at. That's what TAFE is not good at. So we differentiate ourselves that way. Our weakness compared to them is that we've got to actually, well, I say we, I'm talking about the Comlink, we can't afford to fail. These first few deliveries have got to be successful because they're going to put us on the map and make us competitive. So, given all of that, final column, how are we going to compete with that particular competitor? We're going to do it through marketing. This is what I'm suggesting. We're going to market and emphasize the fact that we are real world, that this comes from a place of real experience, not out of some textbook. Another competitor might be private RTOs. So Emma, you're a competitor. Registered training organisations, people that are licensed by government to deliver training. Their strength, they're hungry and possibly unscrupulous. Now I'm letting you out of it in that particular charge, Emma, but we do know that in the vet sector, there have been some real rip-offs going on. There's people going to jail at the moment. Unscrupulous people hanging outside Centrelink offices with laptops, with tablets, offering them to people, putting people into debt, not delivering, and etc. At the same time, like any criminal class, that makes for a certain amount of creativity and nimbleness. So these RTOs are very small, the same way as we're smaller than TAFE, they're smaller than us, and it means that they can move very quickly. Their weakness is that they haven't got any money. Typically, they haven't got any money. So in the same way as TAFE has got more money than Comlink does to throw at training, they have very little money to throw relative to what TAFE, to spend relative to what Comlink can spend. Our strengths, we can, and again, we're behaving to them a little bit like TAFE. I'm relating TAFE to us. We can absorb a certain amount of those on costs. Not limitless, not as much as TAFE can, but we do have specialist marketing people. We do have specialist training people now. We can run those costs into what you can, indeed, in your business as well, use some of Comlink's resources, particularly in that area of marketing, to sell your product. Our weakness comparing to them is that we've got to maintain our credibility with government. It may be that Comlink Intrapreneurs is the first step for Comlink itself becoming a training provider. There's no reason that we can't capitalise on this and scale this and actually become a university of the real world in our own right. To do that, we've got to be credible with government. And that's a pretty high level job. That's a job for senior management and the schmoozing they've got to do with the politicians and the mayor and etc. So what does that mean? How do we compete? We innovate all the time. We constantly change what we're doing. We upgrade. We get better all the time. So we stay ahead of these small operators. We're even more nimble and more responsive than they are. Now, when I put this together, the note that I put down at the bottom, when I looked at that, the TAFE as a competitor, I noticed that I did reduce. My analysis was that we can't afford to fail in the early stages. That it's really important that we're succeeding and we're seen to be succeeding. I made myself a note to actually remember that when I do my risk analysis later. Now I have the benefit of knowing that we have a risk analysis tool coming up. You know, you wouldn't necessarily do this yourself, but I'm just trying to demonstrate taking notes to self as we go through this. Okay, so I've done a competitor analysis and that has generated 2 sets of actions. How do we consistently innovate? How do we market effectively? And how do we consistently innovate in order to make this process a commercial item? So any questions on that one?
No.
Okay. One more tool and then it's knock-off time.
Mike,
yes.
could you have, you mentioned it earlier, could you have done a third emerging competitor that could be the university sector?
Ah, good point. Yes, absolutely. And
with bespoke sort of stuff?
Yeah, that's an excellent point, not least because over here, when I was talking about cherry picking, or was it here?
No, it was. You were just on there with your...
Oh yes, changes in products. People are cherry picking post-secondary. I know for a fact that QUT is looking at, they're looking at whole new forms, associate degrees, advanced apprenticeships, different sorts of formats where people can actually come to the university, do a scan of their entire offering from IT to nursing to creative industries and piece together a portfolio for themselves. So yes, the universities are entering this space and they are a competitor for us. So excellent question.
I was just going to say, I did in my degree, I did a entrepreneurs and innovations as a subject as part of that, and I was wondering whether, Michael, you knew if they were teaching that are they teaching that independently?
Yeah, I know that the School of Business at Uni of Sunshine Coast has now introduced an entrepreneurship minor, and they're also teaching social enterprise, I think, as part of their MBA course. I happen to know the staff that are assigned to those courses, and those people have never started a business in their lives. So there would be a clue there about how we would differentiate our offering. So you might have a doctorate in some kind of business discipline, but tell me how that plays out in the practical world of starting a business. People are climbing onto the bandwagon. Amanda and Emma would probably know better than me what the post-secondary providers are going. I know Swinburne in Melbourne is very big on social enterprise and this kind of grounded business. It's a bit like the TAFEs, the university is a competitor. They're big, cumbersome organisations that are very slow to change. And I think they run on this mythical qualification, the PhD, that is worth less and less. But that's just an opinion.
I'd make an exception to that, Michael, with UWA and their social impact. So they've got quite a movement there, but they've got some stuff coming up on social impact entrepreneurship, which will be interesting, that they're taking around Australia.
Okay, UWA.
Yeah, I can send through some details to you.
Yeah, share anything like that. And for everybody, if something comes up later that you think is relevant to these conversations, please do. Okay, final tool, and this is involved in the start of the where. I'm actually jumping the first of the WHERE tools, and I'll explain next webinar, why I'm doing that. But I'd like to start this with just 5 minutes of a bit of a concentration exercise. This is a bit of an experiment. I've never done this online. When we're in person, it's easier to sort of check, but it involves you essentially doing a bit of a mindfulness exercise with me now, which involves you closing your eyes and just listening to my voice. In this exercise, we are going to imagine ourselves in a place where our business idea has happened and it is incredibly successful. Everything that could have gone right with this business has gone right. So bringing your awareness just to your breath, just to your breathing in and out, put yourself in a place where that has happened. So deep breaths in, deep breaths out. Put yourself in this rosy place. A place where everything is perfect. Everything that could have gone right has gone right. Are you sitting or standing? What are you wearing? Who are the people around you? Is there music? Is there conversation? Is it loud? Is it quiet? How are you holding your body in this amazing place? Are your shoulders square, relaxed, lounging in a big chair, standing in a doorway, smiling, focused? How do you feel? What word would you give to the emotions you're experiencing? Breathing easily in and out. Make that picture of your success as fine-grained and as detailed as you can. Use the evidence of your senses, what you're hearing, what you're feeling on your skin. There might be a taste. There might even be a scent or a smell. There might be a sense of motion. And enjoy it, because that is your eventual success. Now in a minute, I'm going to say snap, because normally I'd snap my fingers. When I do that, I'm going to give you 30 seconds just to take a pen and write down just words that remind you of this experience in some way. Snap, do it now. Without thinking too hard, just whatever words are in your head to describe that experience. Okay, thank you for that. I have no way of knowing if that works or not. I don't particularly want to ask each person in turn whether it did. I would have a sense if we did this in person. As I say, it was a bit of an experiment. This goes to that success factor that I shared with you at the beginning of this webinar about focus. And I can't remember who it was, but somebody said it was either a strength or weakness. It came up then. Focus involves a picture of what eventual success looks like. It's not goal setting. Goal setting is something we'll come to. It's about having the picture of success as finely grained in your imagination as possible, because the way we see things is the way things become. This is the entrepreneurial gaze. I might have mentioned this before, but you see at the Olympics, long jumpers, high jumpers, pole vaulters, before they actually start their run, their head sort of bobs up and down. And it's because they're picturing the perfect jump. Before they start to move, they have in their head the perfect jump. They do that for a reason. Their coaches know that if they have the perfect jump in their head, then they will take the right steps when they move. Or they will, the chances are that they'll take the right steps when they move. If we have in our heads, if we carry with us, and this is the whole point of the where section of this course, if we carry with us what success looks, smells, tastes, feels like, if we know what the emotions are like, if we know whatever detail is relevant to us, we will be more skillful tomorrow and the next day because we will carry that forward. I mentioned Stephen Covey's book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. One of those is start with the end in view. That's what you were doing just then. When I did this yesterday night for myself, I wrote into this tool. This is tool number 7. We've jumped over 6. We'll come back to that. Edgeware's philosophy is make money, have fun, change the world. Financial is make money. Personal is have fun. Social and environmental is change the world. So that's the logic of this tool. So rather than just the random words, I recounted and revisited that experience, imagining that in 3 to 5 years, my business concept has been entirely successful. And you can kind of go nuts with this. It doesn't matter. Well, you shouldn't put it on Mars, probably. All other things being equal, imagine eventual success. What does that look like financially? How does it feel personally? And what does it look like socially and environmentally? And this is the way I answered those questions in terms of commercializing the intrapreneurship program. So financially, we're selling this to 12 organisations a year at a gross margin of $15,000 per delivery. So this is earning Comlink 180 grand before costs per year.
Free drink.
Yeah. Like I said, go nuts. Personally, I'm acknowledged as the designer of the program, and my peers give me feedback like that, and the occasional free drink. And I feel proud. There's a sense of lightness and a sense of pride emotionally in that success. Socially, environmentally, people have actually looked at this program, and there's evidence that shows that it's had a benefit for the organisations that are involved, but also for the people that we serve. So that's make money, have fun, change the world. What is the financial elements of my success? What are the personal elements of my success? And what are the social elements of my success? So what I'm recommending to you is when you revisit this tool, when you get up to the where section, very simple, just close your eyes, find yourself in a comfortable position, close your eyes and bring your attention to your breath. And as you do that, as you relax and become more mindful of your situation, imagine your eventual success and then write it down. Unless, of course, the tool is irrelevant, in which case just ignore it. I think it's relevant, I think it's useful, but that's just my opinion. I put a note down the bottom just about timeline, because again, I know what's coming up in the how, and you'll hear me harangue you about getting specific about dates and numbers and deliverables. Actions are only good if they're really specific and if they're really measurable. So I'm going to design the commercial version of this by the end of this year, and we're going to roll it out next year to other people, and I'm going to give shitloads of extra work to Amanda and Emma to deliver it. Any questions about this tool? Okey-doke. Now I'm looking at everybody again. You're gorgeous. Checkout time, folks, so that we can finish on time. Checkout is really what I'm feeling, how I'm thinking about stuff. Do I have any responses to the tools we've just worked on? Am I sick of Michael's voice yet? Am I looking forward to Amanda? Anything you'd like to share. Somebody starts and then throws to somebody else.
Sorry, Michael, I just had a moment when we went back to this screen. They just gave me a real Brady Bunch. Is this the same format?
And it's the truth.
Brady Bunch. Sorry, I just I'm too young to remember the screen from the
We can do something with that. I'm sure we can do something with that.
So is that your checkout, Emma?
You have the music playing in the background.
Thank you, Emma. So, who's going to check out? Emma, you've started. Check out now.
Oh, I just again, the simplicity of the tools, but the questions that they ask. And yeah, like you said, don't be afraid to just jump in, but if you're feeling overwhelmed, come back and ask yourself really simple questions. Just scale it back. Yeah. And I suppose a check-in from my perspective is that I'm open to discuss with anyone. My email address is there and my phone number should be there as well. So feel free to get in touch if you want to sound out or gas, the case may be.
Thanks, Emma. Throw to somebody else.
Oh, I'm going to throw to Christine.
Thanks, Emma. Yeah, I'm enjoying it. Still overwhelming, although I'm still very excited. There's one thing I did want to say to Steph. Steph, I was a hairdresser many moons ago, and I worked in nursing homes with my mother at the age in my 20s. So you can pick my brain if you like. I've also done a few hairdos in the Comlink kitchen and in my office as well. Had a few fringes and done a few bobs.
I need a haircut.
Oh, okay. No worries.
Part of the gas group. Eh?
Yeah, the gas group. I'm good at shaving heads too. Steph, baby, what was that?
I did ask Louise because she was a hairdresser.
Yeah.
She's not touching anyone's hair. She made that clear.
You probably wouldn't want me to either.
Okay, Christine, throw to somebody.
Steph.
Yeah, I'm pretty flustered with it all. To be honest, I've been thinking about food most of the night because I've been really hungry. But yeah, I'm still trying to work on the customer group, which is, yeah, getting to me a little bit, but I'll figure it out.
And we will help you, Steph.
Thank you.
Throw to somebody.
Tammy.
I'm finding it really good. To be honest, I struggle with the close your eyes, imagine this, because my mind cannot stay focused on when it's silent. And when you say a word like imagine yourself sitting in a chair, my thoughts then go, what sort of chair would I'm questioning, what sort of chair should I sit in? And so that doesn't really work for me. But this number 7 writing it down works for me. I've got a page full of notes just while you're talking. So yeah, I agree. The tools are easy to use, and it's helpful for me. I think it's creating my pitch without me having started a pitch yet. So it's good.
Nice.
Oh, Paul.
I've really enjoyed the tools. I must admit, I probably haven't really got into the space. Only in the last week, I did have some time away myself, camping for a couple of weeks. I feel for the rest of you who are working. Really challenging. I've been there and done that to try and juggle so many different things, as well as this is, in your spare time, whatever spare time you get. So I also sprained my ankle early in the week. So I really got into this the last few days. I can't move away from the desk, but what I haven't done is really connected with people face to face, and I'm really keen to do that. And as I said earlier on, I'm keen to meet up with Emma and pop down to hobble down to the Virginia office at some stage and catch up with you.
Thanks, Paul.
Jay?
I actually did really like the whatever thing we just did. I found that I actually found that really good, and I didn't see myself sitting down at all, which would be fantastic because I'm always sitting down. I thought that was easy for me to see the bigger picture. I just don't know how really to get there, but once I actually have some time to spend, I can see how the tools are going to be very useful in me working that out. I just haven't had the time yet.
Jay, we should have our lunch breaks together.
I don't have lunch.
You need to have lunch.
I know. So yeah, I know. I need to. The timing's never good, is it?
Make it so.
Amanda, I think it's the only one left. Is that right? Is she there still?
Yeah, I'm here. I'm on the other end. You've got to scoot along to see me. Yeah, another great night. I'm quite, I know the tools really well, and I'm really intimate with the tools, but every group adds something different to them, and I really like that. I love seeing how different groups connect. Michael, my feedback was for me, having done the visualization, both taken it and experienced it many times, it worked really well on the Skype actually, but I'm really tired, so I think I very easily fell into a meditative state. So yeah, and my night's not finished. I as this closes, I'm aware that I've still got a couple more different hats to put on and fulfill my night, so work-wise. So yeah, but I'm really looking forward to being able to be a bit of a voice with you and not this passive person at the other end. The teacher in me is itching to get in there a bit more. But yeah, and just really enjoying, I think you've all got really viable ideas, and I enjoying listening to Michael again and reconnecting with the tools.
Mel, I think you're it.
Oh, there is a, yes. Up the other end, Mel.
I'm really excited. I can't wait to, I've got so many ideas and directions to go with this, and I'm excited about Monday to, I don't know, to have a bit of a trial, I guess, to see how it goes and to see where we can go with it. But to be honest, the part that's freaking me out the most is when we get down to the nitty gritty and start talking about money and figures and working that side of things out. That makes me a bit nervous, but the idea itself and everything, yeah, loving it.
Mel, I was just wanted to ask you, how do you think you'll work in? I mean, correct me, just with some of the bringing the older generation with the younger generation. Is this group coming in there within their school time, or are they doing it after school?
But before even reaching school age, Jay, is what I'm thinking.
Oh, okay, yep.
So I don't know, maybe Maybe between the ages of 2 and 4 is sort of where I've had my mind at the moment.
So you can focus on the time that suits the the adult, you know, the
absolutely.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking that, you know, clients going to the respite centre, obviously for respite or to give their spouse a bit of carers relief, you know, strainers relief. So whilst, you know, clients are there for the day for their respite, on the other side of things, it's sort of like a daycare centre, I guess.
Yeah.
But, you know, in aged care facilities and our Comlink events and all that sort of stuff. And obviously daycare centres and schooling and stuff have their own curriculum and activities. So to see them both come together and do that together would be awesome. And just little things like what I've seen on that show, just little things like, you know, a little girl being a typical little girl and not giving the old lady a turn of drawing, you know, so the old lady took it, confiscated it from her and said, no, not until you. So just seeing it all come together, you know, and the kids so innocent, encouraging, come on, you can do it. No, I can't. I can't walk that far. Come on, yes, you can. Yeah. So, you know, just seeing both ends come together, I think the options are endless. But that's the sort of age group I'm thinking. Jay, sort of like a respite centre and a daycare centre sort of thing.
Paul, you have some experience in primary ed, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So, I mean, I know that's getting older, 6 and up, but nevertheless, I think some ideas about process, just for your information. Paul,
no, thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think, Chris, you're looking at a childcare idea. These ideas are almost intertwining a little bit.
Yeah.
Have you ever heard of Steiner School?
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah.
You could partner with them in something like that, I reckon, because they'd be interested in that. Because they're about all that kind of stuff with kids and like the natural side.
Like Montessori.
Yeah.
Sure.
You've also got the Edmund Rice Centre school up Sunshine Coast as well, the Edmund Rice education centres, which have alternative programs.
Yeah.
Sorry, Amanda, can you just repeat that again?
Edmund Rice. So Edmund Rice they have flexi school, often for kids with challenging behaviours, but also children who maybe aren't fitting into the mainstream schooling system.
Sure.
So you might find something like that might be really beneficial. In a past life, I used to work in programs with young people who had challenging behaviours. And and so you might find that they'll be open to even just bringing 5 kids out of class to come and spend time with your respite people is actually a value add to those kids who need connection and you know, elders and all of that.
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
And thank you. My checkout is to thank you. I'm profoundly grateful that the world puts me consistently in front of people like you. I think it's just so stimulating, and I'm so grateful. I think what I'm observing, I don't know if you are, is the kind of thing that we've noticed generally where the word edgies come from. There's a kind of tribality that starts to emerge from this because we start to realize that we're not only about getting our own idea out there and happening, but helping others do that. And when we do that, then we start to feel like we belong together. And that's the whole philosophy of this edgy thing. You know, you will emerge not only with a certificate 3, but as Comlink edgy. The previous group noticed the same thing. I think that's our default position as human beings. Our default position is compassion. Our default position is to work with each other. And that's what I'm seeing. That's what I just saw a prime example of. Thank you for kicking that off, Steph, with the Steiner comment. The other final thing I'd leave you with is anybody experiencing that sense of overwhelm, like I say, it became a kind of meme in the last delivery. Trust the process. Trust the process. The clarity you're looking for is there already. The problem is you can't see it. Any final comments before we sign off? No? Well, it's beginning.
Thank you, Mike.
Thanks, Michael.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much.
It was good
Thanks,
fun.
Mike.
See you soon.
Awesome.
Bye. Have a good
Bye.
fortnight.
See you in 2
See
weeks.
you guys.
See you later.
Bye.
Bye.